This video is sponsored by Skillshare.
A couple of weeks ago, I did a very dangerous thing. I put up a questionnaire on my Instagram story. Now, the question was seemingly innocent enough. It was asking what you guys think I should do for a Valentine's Day special of sorts. But you see, the danger here lies in the fact that I am a Libra and very easily become overwhelmed by choice. Coming off of a several-month-long art block with a renewed sense of purpose is both a blessing and a curse. Because yes, I now have the energy and motivation to execute all of the ideas that I would possibly wish. But I now lack the time required to do so because Valentine's is one day and February is the shortest month of the entire year. This is all basically a very elaborate way of saying I saw the Instagram replies, I got 2 ideas, and it's not Valentine's Day anymore. But I'm still going to do both of the ideas. I did one of them last week and it was a ton of fun. I had more fun making that video than I've had in like a while, and I think it really shows. And I'm not letting that feeling go now. So by far, the most requested thing on my little Valentine's Day questionnaire was some kind of Queen of Hearts inspired outfit, cosplay, sewing project thing. So as a lady whose favorite color is red and has a propensity for dressing like a vampire, this prompt speaks to me on a spiritual level. I simply must do it. So let's see what ingredients Shaggy Thrifting Kira is cooking up for us.
Hello there, Brainstorming Kira here. So I am in the very, very early stages of this project, and I have a bunch of loosely connected ideas in my head, mostly from the suggestions that you guys gave me. And right now I'm trying to figure out how to like make them mesh together, fuse into some kind of cohesive idea that I can actually make. I've got a whole Pinterest board. Right now I have got a bunch of big Queen of Hearts energy going on. I mean, all of these, come on. I also really like these kind of hairdos. And I really also like a little devil horns type cap, how they could visually mesh together very well. I think that's super cute. Need I say more? So I have a bunch of lace fabric, but what I don't have is some red fabric. So I'm gonna go to the thrift store and peruse that a little bit, see what I can find. I really hope the thrift store is open. And we are open. If y'all are wondering what kind of thrift store this is one of these thrift stores. I feel like we've actually got a pretty good haul here. I think I got everything that I needed.
Allow me to introduce you to the girls.
First, allow me to introduce you to this bed skirt. The fabric on the bottom has a bit of a color-shifting quality to it that makes me think of a Las Vegas hotel room. I got some lace valances with ruffles on the end. I like these because they're pretty and most of the work has already been done for me. I also got what looks like a pink lace curtain. It looks like a grandmother's soul, and I love it. I also got not 1, but 2 pink tablecloths with ruffles already sewn on. Once again, the thrift fairies have done that for me. And finally, her. A fringed tablecloth made of the cheapest velvet money can buy, and she's just asking to become a corset. And for all of this, I paid a total of $5, which is why I implore you to go to your local backwoods thrift store. They're just giving this stuff away, and making it into something weird really does the world a favor. So, now that I know what I'm working with, design-wise, as you saw, my inspirations were all over the place, but the consensus is generally a vaguely historical, vintage-inspired showgirl look with Queen of Hearts essence. You know the little label they put on LaCroix that's like, this has the essence of a peach? That's the energy of the Queen of Hearts references here. I basically designed a late Victorian-inspired corset with a heart cut out in the neckline, fully trimmed with lace and beading, an off-the-shoulder medieval revival puff sleeve with a lace bat sleeve on the bottom, an open front skirt with a bunch of layers and frill, and all of this is complete with red gloves, red tights, and red boots. To top it off, I also added a little horned hood inspired by the ones that I saw on Pinterest, and I feel like this overall look is a combo of the concepts of Queen of Hearts and Fool for Love, because I feel like this is definitely a trickster character who separates you and your partner in a mysterious forest and you have to beat her in a rigged car game to save your love. You know, just I'm a bored demon things. So now that we've got the design worked out, let's get patterning. The Victorian corset is a little structurally complicated. I'm using the 1860s steampunk corset pattern from corsetpatternmaker.com as a base for this. These corset patterns are generated based on your personal measurement, so I have a link and an affiliate discount code in the description if you would like to make one yourself. Once I've got that cut out, I'm just taping it together. And I'm lengthening the hip a little bit because I want this to be a very long, dramatically flared corset. I'm also adjusting the bust area slightly and then draping the upper body portion so that I can have my little heart cutouts. The bust I have on hand is a little bit short for this corset, but we'll deal with that a little bit later. For now, this is a great working pattern, so now I am moving on to patterning my little hood by covering my wig head in some tape. After drawing on some seam lines, all I gotta do is cut it up and then put it on some paper so that it doesn't stick all over my table. So now it is time to make like Michael Myers and slice up this girl. And this step of copying all of the pattern pieces onto fabric is definitely my favorite. I love how tedious this is. It's so fun. I love sewing and I love cutting it out even more. It's not the bane of my existence or anything. The fun part is that even after all of this, still gotta cut the lining. My spine already feels like it's slowly separating from my body. So to procrastinate on the inevitable back pain of cutting the lining out, I decided to pin on the base layer instead to see what it looked like. And dearest viewer, this is when I detected a problem. This corset, whenever on, is not supposed to look like flaps of skin clinging to a French bulldog.
So this is my second day of working on the base corset, and I have to admit that I am getting already bamboozled by this process a little bit. My main issue is that the dang thing doesn't fit.
Let me clarify that this is not the pattern's fault, and I did in fact add a little bit of space to this corset because I thought that I was gonna be too small, and I was wrong. Original fit probably would have been fine.
The thing is just already way too big, and it also just sort of like scrunches in a couple of weird places. I think that some of the problem here is that the generated corset pattern is partially based off your height, and I am not a typically proportioned human being. I am like very short-waisted, so some of the scrunching that's happening, especially in the back, is probably because of that. I was definitely being too optimistic because I already went ahead and I cut the pieces out of the fabric that I'm going to be using for the final project. I didn't do a mock-up because I was like, yeah, the paper thing is the mock-up. It'll be close enough. Again, the original pattern is based off of my measurements.
What you mean?
Fabric and paper are different.
What?
I'm already playing damage control this soon into a video. One of my big goals with this project is leveling up my basic sewing skills, my patterning, my cutting, my finishings and embellishments, because whenever I got back into sewing a couple of years ago, basics are something that I kind of breezed past in order to get to the fun part of actually making stuff. So to refamiliarize myself with the basics a little bit, I've been checking out Robin Burgess's Learning Path Sew Custom Clothing from Scratch, which of course is available through this video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the world's largest online learning community for creatives, with thousands of classes led by industry pros in topics like illustration, painting, film and videography, music production, sewing, and everything else that you can possibly think of. With the start of a new year, I've been setting up little side quests with myself to improve on skills that I'm already familiar with, and you can do the same by starting a learning journey on Skillshare and leveling up your creative skill tree. And if you're not sure where to start and you want more of an in-depth look at a topic, Skillshare has curated learning paths. These are a selection of hand-picked classes that are meant to be taken in order, building on each other and reinforcing each lesson. They're available in a range of experience levels from beginner to advanced and in a variety of categories including design, productivity, creative freelancing, tools and software like Procreate and Blender, marketing, and of course sewing. Going from sewing with commercial patterns to sewing clothing that you drape or draft yourself is a big leap, so the Sewing Custom Clothing from Scratch Learning Path is a great collection if you want to take your creations from concept sketch to a real functioning garment. Specifically on this project, the class Sewing a Made-to-Measure Muslin really helped me figure out some of the fit issues that I was having with this corset early on. And that's one of the huge advantages of making your own patterns in the first place, because you can make it fit your body perfectly. And that's something that Robin can help you learn how to do. So if you want to try out Skillshare's learning paths or any of their other wonderful individual classes, the first 500 people to sign up using my link in the description will get a free 1-month trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now back to the project. The fitting part of this project was very much just me being very tedious and futzing around and like repinning and cutting out material and just trying to get it to the point where it's a more precise fit. At one point along the way, I also repatterned the 2 front panels because I just really hated how they looked. And eventually I got to the point where I tried it on and I was like, okay, I don't think that this will blow up in my face if I move forward. So then I took the risk of going ahead and cutting the lining out. Maybe a little premature, but I hate this part, so I just wanted to get it over with. And the rest of the evening consisted of a lot of tedious transferring boning lines onto the corset so I know where they go, sewing a bunch of bias tape on those lines to be the future boning panels. I spent a while doing this, and it even kind of bled into the next day. Long story short, just a lot of tedious stuff that didn't make it on camera because, hey, I wouldn't do that to you. The one thing that I did do more or less successfully yesterday was sew together the base of my little devil hood, horned hood, I don't know what to call it. For some reason I thought making this thing was going to be really hard, but like you saw, I just patterned it off of a wig head. I cut out the pattern pieces, sewed those together, made sure to include a couple of little darts so that it curves around my dome piece in the right areas. I sewed a couple of horns out of little triangular pieces and then hand sewed them on. And then I sewed a lining to the whole thing, right sides together, and then finished off those edges with a little bit of contrast stitching to make it look all nice. It does, and it fits surprisingly well.
I also forgot to mention that I added a little bit of wire in the horns to make them posable, and I also spent several hours hand beading the front edges of the hood with pearls and little red beads, and I think it looks really, really cute. I'm very happy with how that came out. I don't know, beading just hits different.
Whenever I make things that I don't really have a plan for, it blows my mind a little bit, like if they go well. So let's just say I'm going into the next part of this corset construction with a renewed sense of confidence. Probably too much.
With my renewed sense of confidence, I dove right into stitching this corset up. I stitched all of the side seams of the outer layer, and I did the same to the collar section of the outer layer as well. I attached it to the corset section, and then started stitching the seams on my lining. Once that was looking good, I made sure to press down all of my seams, and once the collar section was attached to the lining, I flipped those pieces wrong sides together and started pinning so that I could attach the two layers with nice crispy edges. Not that you can tell because I did that off camera, and I also sewed a little busk line off camera because it's the first time that I've done that. It was bamboozling me just a little bit. Before flipping the layers back right side out, it's important to trim all of the corners and then trim any areas that could have tension in them. This will prevent all of the seam lines from looking all weird and help everything to lay nice and flat. So now I can tediously try to flip that heart right side out along with the rest of my pieces, and now I can insert my busk. Again, did this off camera, sorry, it's just sewing around metal gives me anxiety.
Now for what many of you know is my least favorite part of the project, grommet time. Otherwise known as, I really should have gotten a grommet press by now, given how often I add grommets to things, and I still haven't done it yet because I'm cheap. Subscribe to the Patreon.
And after installing more grommets than I can even count, which is quickly becoming my personal hell, this is what the corset looked like on.
And ta-da! Here is where we are at the end of all that. A lot of work has been done on this thing. Allow me to show you the progress that we have here. I have to say, this is heavier than it looks. Excuse me while I try not to stab myself with all of the sewing pins that are in this. That was a whole thing. I don't have it laced all the way in the back because I'm too lazy to do that right now, but this is where we are. She feels very solid. I think it's looking pretty good. I'm pretty excited with how this is coming out. Like, this is my first time making a corset that's this style of sort of fully boned. So many boning channels in this baby. Took me an eternity to sew, and my first time doing one with a busk and trying to like install it and make it functional. I would say it's working out pretty well. I need to figure out some kind of padding to put in here. Right now this corset is almost done, but there's still a couple of things that I have to do to finish up like the finishings on this. I also need to like start working on the sleeves part of this project as well as the skirt part of this project because I haven't done that at all, and this is like my last day that I can really work on this and get it done. For the corset itself, the bottom still needs to be finished up, which is a little bit of an issue that I will discuss in just a moment here. Then I also need to add a little bit more structure to the top closure here so that the heart actually keeps its shape and form, and I need to add some little closures to this as well, which I am very excited about. I got a lot of materials for this project, but top closures are the one thing that I didn't really think of. Well, that and like padding. But since I have a 3D printer, I figured that I could just like print out some heart closures from like a file that I find on the internet, and that's what I did.
I went on the Google machine and found this heart clasp file on printables, so I just loaded it into my slicer software, scaled it a little bit, and printed it out with a pretty decent amount of infill, hoping that it wasn't too small and delicate for my printer. Not bad. I'm always worried that small things like this that I print won't be functional, but I think that this is actually, I think this should work. And it works perfect. Look at that. It's so cute.
And I'm gonna paint these pink, and I'm very excited. So the part that I was talking about with finishing the bottom of this, that's going to make it a little bit complicated. Allow me to show you my little blunder. I do this so often with every corset that I make. It's probably my most frequent sewing mistake. I keep trying to conquer it, but it continues to conquer me. It's very frustrating. So the bottom closure in the front, all of these little bits can just be trimmed down to size, but the issue lies in the inside, because the way the corset is, it's so rounded at the hip so that you have that flare and extension. Most of the lining seems to line up pretty well. But then for some reason, I made a mistake in the pattern cutting here, where it's just not quite as long as it needs to be with like these few panels. And this, I think, is the better side. On here, it's actually far worse. I would have to like really kind of stretch the lining to be able to fit it. So, to sort of fix this, I think what I'm going to do is just cut a strip of this same material and sort of sew it to the inside of this, right sides together, just flip it so that it extends down lower, and then cut that to size with the bottom, and then probably stitch some bias tape over it. I think that should at least make it a little bit neater. Hello and welcome back to I got very focused on this project for 3 days straight and didn't talk to the camera nearly as frequently as I probably should have. Allow me to update you and show you where we are at this point in the project. First up, the color needed some padding so it wasn't so flaccid, and I apologize for using the word flaccid, but it just seemed right in the moment. I also decorated it with a little scrap trim to make it feel special. And you know that thing I said about sewing around metal giving me anxiety? Well, it gave me so much anxiety that I actually hand sewed around the bust to keep it in place. And you know it's gotta be a dire circumstance to make me break out the hand sewing, so definitely add this picture to my top 10 worst fears list. I also, in rapid succession, added a little boning to the heart cutout on the chest, finished the sleeve edges off with some of the pink lace that I got from the thrift store. This is what it looked like now. And I finally finished off the bottom edge with a little bit of scrap lace that I had. Yes, that's right, my plan for piecing the lining worked, and I felt like a mild genius. It's like a normal genius, only you make detrimental sewing mistakes that you then have to fix. Here I was adding lace directly on top of boning, and I was not going to hand sew this on, so there was really no getting around it. I was very careful, so it's not really noticeable, but now you and I know that there's just a little bit of crusty glue on this nicely made corset. Before we go any further in this video, please enjoy this brief interlude of weird things that my cat did this week while I was filming this video. First of all, this, whatever this is, I think she was just frustrated that I had fabric on the bed in one of the places that she likes to sleep, and she wanted to get it down, but she lacks opposable thumbs and the will to do so. You stuck? Oh, baby. Next up, she has recently become very enamored by Drawfee. She perceived a screen for the first time watching Drawfee a couple of weeks ago, and it blew my mind. My cat is 15 years old and had never perceived a screen until Julia Drawfee did just a big old thick line, and it opened her third eye or something like that. Finally, she got feral one night and kept on jumping on the shelf and knocking things down. This is old footage, but it communicates the general idea as well as my frustration level. This has been Weird Things That Tiger Did This Week. Yes, that is her name, by the way. I'm trying to use it more on the channel. Are you embarrassed because you got stuck? So for the skirt, I'm going to keep things very, very simple, mostly because I don't have time to do anything else. So one of the pieces of fabric I thrifted is basically just a big old oval or circle or something like that, which means that it is basically kind of already a circle skirt. It just depends on how I cut the waist hole. According to my design, I kind of want it to be an open in the front style skirt and maybe like a little bit more high-low than something that's like completely even. So I think all I'm going to do for the main length of skirt is cut a hole like a little closer to the front of this so that it's like got that high-low effect to it, and then have just like a drapey, flowy back to it. I think this length is long enough for me because I am a short queen. I want to have multiple layers of skirt here because the corset is very full in the hips. So I think I also might do something similar with this piece. And that's nice because it's got some like ruffle on the bottom as well. And then I also left at least half of my main red fabric to maybe do some skirt things with. I don't know exactly how I'm going to incorporate this piece into the skirt. I don't know. I need you, I need you, I need you. So I am really just gonna have a mess around with this skirt, I think. I'm gonna do this live because I'm feeling a little feisty right now. It's late and I'm feeling just a little bit insane. How are you? Have you done any impulsive sewing projects lately? If you have, I hope that they're less impulsive than whatever I'm doing right now. So I think all I'm gonna do for this, normally I would like fold this in complete fourths. Also, look at that. I found a stain. Is that surprising? Not in the slightest. You saw what the thrift store I got this from looked like. I'm gonna fold it like this, and I'm gonna fold it again. And I'm gonna just do my normal waist measurement, which I think I remember what it is. Let's see, brain. We don't have time to do math tonight. We're just gonna cut it. If it's wrong, don't even worry about it. We'll just regret it and then move on. All right, I feel like this is pretty good for a start, for a base for the skirt, like something like this. What I do want is like enough volume in the hips to fill out like the corset, because once again I mentioned that I didn't plan ahead and buy something to make padding out of. I don't know. I've had too much caffeine today and I'm wired and I'm thinking out loud. Oh yeah. That's the good stuff. No guides today, fellas. We're freestyle sewing. If you're stressed watching this, just remember, you're not as stressed as I am. Yeah, just commit. Okay. This is something. It is giving. I'm breaking into the palace on Naboo to retake my throne. Do you know what I'm saying? I was about to brag about how straight this cut was that I did free-handed, and then I saw the other side. So I put a couple of gathers into the skirt. Can you see that? Might look complicated, but it's just 2 gathers, one going down one side and one going down the other to create a little drape. I also did something similar with this red piece, so it's sort of a gradual tiered skirt. It's looking very Victorian in the back and then fantasy nonsense in the front. It's like a weird skirt mullet. To make it into a skirt that actually stays on my waist, all I'm going to do sew a little bias tape around the waist so that it can tie on, once again making it more of like a petticoat style skirt. I love making these because they're very easy.
So this night I was initially planning on powering through the project, but then I looked at the clock and I thought, you know what, I don't think so. There's too much left to do and my brain cells have left the building, so it's the next day now. That's also why this video is very late.
Going into this project, the point of it was kind of to detail things and work on my beading a little bit and play around with trims and laces and just like grab some materials from the thrift store and have some fun with them. So I did decide to take another day on this project because, you know, rushing through everything last night just would not have been up to my level of standard for this. Make no mistake, I am a perfectionist to a certain extent. All right, friends, you know what time it is now. It is sleeve time. Wow, that was a little bit more aggressive than I intended it to be. Alright, bear with me, I'm going to draw some diagrams on the screen for you. So this should be, in theory, remarkably simple. My famous last words, I know. I'm gonna do this the same way that I've done a couple of other sleeve patterns that I've made. I'm gonna have a sleeve poof at the top, like on the bicep part, I would say. So that's gonna be one long piece at the top that's going to get gathered down into a shorter piece that's going to fit around my bicep. Then I'm going to have a cuff at the top of that that's going to be fitted slightly to my bicep with elastic on it. I'm gonna have a cuff at the bottom of that, basically around my elbow section. And then with this fabric, I'm going to be making kind of circular drapey lace sleeves. So I think this might just get gathered down to a size that can give it a sleeve drape. I mean, it's just a little valance curtain thing. So in theory, that should work. And then once you got these pieces, bam, sew them together, and then a sleeve is served.
2 seconds later.
Hey guys, you know what's funny? And by funny, I mean potentially tragic. I think I forgot to buy elastic the other day. That's not good. My entire sleeve concept is based on having elasticized sleeves. So I gotta go over there real quick just for a second. We might have to improvise a little bit.
I ended up improvising the sleeves by just making the cuffs more fitted. It's less convenient because they fall down sometimes, but in a pinch, it does the trick.
Okay, so now that sleeves are done and skirt is done, the very last step of this project is going to be to mess around and embellish the corset, which, if I'm being honest, is the main thing that I even wanted to do with this project, period. I've been looking forward to it all week, and I absolutely love how the corset came out. Definitely not perfect, but I'm very happy with her. But as for embellishments, I'm a little bit on the fence here, because on the design itself, I knew that I would have this lace, so I basically designed it so that I would end up putting the lace kind of like across the hip like so, to give it more of like a plunge silhouette, and also just to give some like nice little lace embellishment over the hip. I love it whenever a corset like this has just like the most dramatic hip possible. I've been absolutely feral for corsets like this recently, and it's like the only thing on my Pinterest. I go on Pinterest and it's just these corsets, and it's such a problem because now I want to make all of them. I don't know, I like the way this looks on its own so much, just this like nice bold red. I don't know, we'll see. I'll at least pin it and like see what it looks like. But other than that, I have a bunch of little pearl beads, like check that out. And then I also have a bunch of little red beads that are sparkly. That's the general plan for her. I don't know, I'm happy, and I want to make it fancier, but I also don't want to mess it up, so. Welcome to the end of the video. So, what do you think? This costume, as you might have guessed, was an entire thing. This took so long, and it was probably a little bit too much to expect for me to be able to do in a week, but I basically got it done in a week and 1 day. So that's actually not too bad, all things considered. I ended up taking 1 extra day, especially considering the style of corset is not something that I've really made before. Not to mention adding this like kind of shoulder piece to it. I would say that this is kind of the one piece of the project that I am not entirely happy with, just because the way the pattern turned out, it's just pulling on my neck ever so slightly too much. Not to the point where it's like necessarily uncomfortable, but to the point where it's like noticeable, and I can tell that it doesn't quite have that like fitting like a glove fit. For kind of just one thing that I'm complaining about in a project like this, that is more or less alright by me. This lighting is significantly moodier, but anyways. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video if you did. I know this is my first like sewing costuming video in a while. I'm kind of just trying to like get back into the swing of things and find projects that I'm really excited about doing, to like spend a whole week of my time making a thing that I then have in my home. I'm also probably going to be experimenting with like maybe format and structure of these videos a little bit, because it's not lost on me. The way I edit these can get a little bit repetitive. There's only so many things you can do to like make a sewing video interesting without completely meandering into like unrelated subjects every 5 minutes to like keep people engaged. So I don't know, we'll see. Probably going to be doing more of these slightly larger scale projects over the next couple of months, so be on the lookout. I already have my like bigger sewing project for next month planned out. Fingers crossed I can actually like make it work. But I've talked in the past that I want to do more things that are well planned and very intentional. This was one of those projects, which probably has something to do with why I like it so much. Anyways, this was long and rambly, but thank you so much for being here. Subscribe and turn on the notifications and like the video and all of the YouTube things if you feel so inclined. If you would like to throw me a little bone for the algorithm, I always really appreciate it. And hey, it's free, I'm just saying. But of course, the biggest thank you for this video and every single one of my videos goes to my wonderful patrons, and especially my executive producers. Big kisses to you. Thank you for your patience this month. Yeah, I think that's all.
Seno Takai, I'm not saying that name on the internet. ABW Makes, Samalama MC Samabama, Sarah, Crimson Moon 04, Liana, Ermlargene, Anubix, Breeza, Sony, Brian, Phoenix, Rose Draconi, Freedom and Gus Gus, Francesca Sliwa, Kat, Dodo, Zyle S, Agent.Sketchy, Thea Maia, Lovisa, Eloquent Silence, Megan Penland, Enozine, India Gloom, Hypnos, Katie, Sweet Winter Garden, Gravity Drop, I Hang Out with Cats at Parties, and Bean the Bread.
And she goes, How do you deal with me sometimes?